Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. It is TJ, your host. We're in that narcissist bag of tricks, of which is getting very heavy, coming once again from Robert D. Hare's book, Without Conscience, The Disturbing World of the Psychopaths Among Us, Shallow Emotions. Dr. Hare begins with a quote.
"I'm the most cold-blooded son of a beach that you'll ever meet."
So Ted Bundy described himself to the police following his final arrest. These evil creatures seem to suffer a kind of emotional poverty that limits the range and depth of their feelings. While at many times they appear to be cold and non-emotional, they are prone to dramatic, shallow, and short-lived displays of feeling. Careful observers are left with the impression that these creatures are simply play acting, and that very little to nothing is actually going on under the surface. Sometimes they claim to experience strong emotions, but they're unable to describe the subtleties of various affective states. For example, they equate love with intimate arousal, sadness with frustration, and anger with irritability.
I believe in emotions, hate, anger, lust, and greed,
said Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Remarks like the following from Diane Downs, who shot her 3 small kids, should cause people to ponder their sheer inappropriateness and to wonder at the quality of the underlying feelings. Years after this lady's conviction, Miss Downs still insists that her children and she herself were actually shot by a bushy-haired stranger. About surviving the shooting herself, she sustained an injury to her arm, which the jury concluded was self-inflicted. Downs responded,
"Everybody says, you're so lucky." Well, I don't feel very lucky. I couldn't tie my damn shoes for about 2 months. It's very painful. I have a steel plate in my arm, and I will for 1.5 years. The scar's gonna be there forever. I'm gonna remember that night for the rest of my life, whether I want to or not. I don't think I was very lucky. I think my kids were lucky. If I'd been shot the way that they were, we all would have died.
The apparent lack of normal affect and emotional depth led psychologists J.H. Johns and H.C. Quay to say that the psychopath knows the words but not the music. For example, in a rambling book about hate, violence, and rationalizations for his behavior, Jack Abbott made this revealing comment.
There are emotions, a whole spectrum of them, that I know only through words, through reading, and in my immature imagination. I can imagine I feel these emotions, know, therefore, what they are, but I do not. At age 37, I'm barely a precocious child. My passions are those of a boy.
Many clinicians have commented that the emotions of these creatures are so shallow as to be little more than proto-emotions, primitive responses to immediate needs. For example, one of his creatures that he studied was a 28-year-old enforcer for a loan shark, and he had this to say about his job.
"Say, I have to heavy someone who won't pay up. First, I make myself angry."
When asked if this anger was different from the way he feels when somebody insults him or tries to take advantage of him, he replied,
"No, it's all the same. It's programmed, all worked out. I could get angry right now. It's easy to turn it on and turn it off."
Another creature in their research said that he did not really understand what others meant by fear. However,
"When I rob a bank,"
he said,
"I notice that the teller shakes or becomes tongue-tied. One vomited all over the money. She must have been pretty messed up inside, but I don't know why. If somebody pointed a gun at me, I guess I'd be afraid, but I wouldn't throw up."
When asked to describe how he would feel in such a situation, his reply contained no reference to bodily sensations. He said things like,
"I'd give you the money. I'd think of ways to get the drop on you. I'd try to get my ass out of there.
And when asked how he would feel, not what he would think or do, he seemed to be perplexed. Asked if he ever felt his heart pound or his stomach churn, his response was,
Of course! I'm not a robot. I really get pumped up when I have sex or when I get into a fight.
Laboratory experience using biomedical recorders have shown that these types of creatures lack the psychological responses normally associated with fear. The significance of this finding is that for most people, the fear produced by threats of pain or punishment is an unpleasant emotion and a powerful motivator of behavior. Fear keeps us from doing something. Do it and you'll be sorry, but it also makes us do other things. Do it or you'll be sorry. In each case, it's an emotional awareness of the consequences that impels us to take a particular course of action. Not so with these cluster-B creatures. They merely plunge on, perhaps knowing what might happen, but guess what? They don't really seem to care about it. For most of us, fear and apprehension are associated with a variety of unpleasant bodily sensations, such as sweat trickling down your forehead, tenseness, or being weak, trembling, or butterflies in our stomach. Indeed, we often describe fear in terms of the bodily sensations that accompany them.
I was so terrified, my heart leapt into my throat.
I tried to speak, but my mouth just went dry.
And so on. These bodily sensations do not form part of what these creatures experience as fear. For them, fear, like most of the other emotions, it's incomplete, shallow, largely cognitive in nature, and without the psychological turmoil or coloring that most of us find distinctly unpleasant and wish to avoid or reduce. I found this particular section from the book very interesting because it really filled in some of the gaps involved when I actually had been involved with such a creature. Because there'd be random times that I would ask specific questions, which probably most people wouldn't, but I was on to something and kind of viewed this as a case study. But I was told of a circumstance once where this particular creature had said that it worked in some kind of drive-through restaurant and said that a man pulled a gun out on it. Something of which I have never experienced. But I began my interviewing and said, really? Somebody put a gun to your face through the drive-through window? And my first question was, what happened? What did it feel like? And as Sasha Sloan has mentioned, these creatures often tell on themselves, and that's what this one involuntarily did, by stating something like, oh, when I saw that gun being pointed at me, I just felt this feeling of calmness. That was a key red flag right there, because honestly, who that has a gun pointed at them in a random moment is going to feel calm? I heard those words and I just figured, calm? And of course I said this, and the person didn't want to be outed for the creature it was, I'm guessing. I said, well, if I had been working there and I looked out the window and I saw that gun, my heart would jump up. I'd be having a beating heart and a feeling of heat in the forehead or some kind of reaction that's, like they say in the book, bodily. And then I got to watch it try to save face or save itself by saying, oh, well, after I felt the calm, then I felt like that, which clearly is fake. It's clearly an attempt of an alien, reptilian, shape-shifting creature trying to fit in and pretend like it's a regular person. It just doesn't know the right words, like they say. So it tries to fit in, and then when it messes up and you react like I did, then they will change their story, which is defying logic in many cases. But it did show that they don't have an emotional depth, which also explains the risk-taking behavior part, where they can do things to others that most of us wouldn't, because like they mentioned in this book, there'd be a feeling involved. Like, I could lie to this person and tell them that I'm really a woman when I'm a man, but I'm going to have to face this person daily, and what if she or he notices I've got 5 o'clock shadow coming, and most women don't, and I couldn't live with that, because it's an emotional response that's unpleasant. But see, these creatures don't have that, which means they could tell you for the rest of their life that they're the opposite gender of what they are. And I found the part interesting in the book where he talks to the psychopath and asks questions about the fear and everything, and how these creatures don't really grasp what they're doing. They don't know what fear is. They have to fake it. And that's why when you're dating or being involved with one of these creatures, it oftentimes feels like you're with 10 different characters from 10 different movies, and each character has a completely different personality type. But these creatures try to be all of it, because they don't know what they're doing. They're like a robot in a world of humans trying to fit in, and they're drawing from their files and their brains of different ways to react with certain phrases, but they don't understand that each phrase comes from a specific personality type. So here they are pretending to be whatever they're pretending to be, and then throwing out one line that would fit one personality, and then throwing out another one another time, and you look at both and think, those are two separate people's behaviors that wouldn't be in the same person. And of course, if you try to question them further, you'll probably be told that you've got some kind of problem. And then I also knew way back from my high school days about the lack of emotions with these creatures. In order for these types of creatures to feel anything, they have to do extreme behaviors, things that would make most of us have those emotional reactions and we would try to avoid. But these creatures seem to try to deliberately be risk takers, like the man who's got the wife that he swears up and down every day that she's the only one he wants, knowing full well that as soon as she leaves, he's going to have his mistress over to make love and laugh about it when it's done, and then the wife comes home and sleeps in the bed that he didn't wash sheets for. That kind of stuff gets them to feel something, which most of us would be mortified, thinking, oh dear, I just did this. I can't have her come here and feel these. She'll smell her perfume on the sheets. Ooh. And these people aren't like that. They love such things. The laboratory experience that Dr. here talked about indicates how psychopathic people or cluster B can take lie detector tests and pass them. Like Hillary Clinton when she had her guilty client who passed. Well, if you're one of these creatures, you don't have the burden of the normal emotional responses that the rest of us have. So they can sit there and be connected to the lie detector machine, and let's say they murdered 10 people, they've only been found out about 4, and so the man says, did you murder those 4 children? They'll be able to just sit there calmly without any bodily reaction, be able to say, oh no, I've never killed anyone. And they'll say it like that, and they won't feel the normal feelings that regular people have. He just asked if I killed the 4 kids, and I've killed 10. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm worse than I thought. And your heart would like race, and you'd change temperature, and they'd pick it up on the machines, but these people don't have that. So they just can calmly state, oh no, that's ridiculous. I've killed no one. And it's sick. It's the transhuman people of the future we're going to have to deal with. And the other thing I thought interesting was something I've witnessed too, fear. These creatures don't have fear. They have a fear in a very primitive way, such as if you're their target and they want to keep you as their target, they may fear superficially losing you. So they'll say anything they need to keep you around, but it's not the same type of fear that the fully functional person with a spectrum of emotions would feel as fear. I've been guided by such fear, like if there's someone I really dislike and think, I'm going to do something horrible to that person, but then I'll feel the fear of, better not do that, because if you do, this could happen, that could happen, and also you'd have to live with knowing you've done it. All these things, and I'd be like, never mind, I'm not doing it. But these creatures press on and do it. Bear in mind, these people know on some level that they're not really a real person, that they're faking their whole way through, so it doesn't do a lot of good to try to discuss it with them as if they can join you in your same level, because they can't. And it becomes apparent in many cases, usually when it's too late, that you'll realize that this person's not all there. And of course they'll try to cover it up and mask it, but they don't understand. They'll try to pull in different personality types and state that that's what they are to try to explain it away, and you'll know though inside that that's not real. But it doesn't do any good to say you're not a real person, because they'll become enraged and say, don't you tell me I'm not a real person, and they'll say stuff like that, and that's an indication that you hit the nerve, because it's right. So be careful if you're involved with such a creature, because they're capable of anything regardless of how they presented themselves to you.
I am the Narcopath. And I'm the most beautiful thing you've ever had, which makes me not the Narcopath, but your Narcopath. I've got some confessions for you.
TJ told me I had to stick to the subject at hand. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm used to being a slave. I've got Stockholm Syndrome by now. I think I'm in love with TJ. I think he's the one for me. We were meant to be. He was talking about some bag of tricks that he thinks that I have. He's stupid. But he went through one of the things on the list, which was egocentric and grandiose, as if that applied to me. Let me tell you a little secret. I know that when things ended, you probably said that about me, that I was grandiose and egocentric. Do you recall the beginning stages? Do you recall when I did anything you wanted? I went anywhere you wanted? And I'd tell you, oh, don't worry about me not liking that thing you want to go to. I just want to be with you. That'll make me happy. I went from that to being the selfish, egocentric, and grandiose witch that I became towards the end when my true colors started to show. But I conveniently blamed that on you, because you used to wonder and ask me, what happened to that sweet chick I first started dating who did everything for me? I told you, honey, you ruined her. You chased her away. And, of course, I was referring to the first time you caught me naked with the neighbors next door, after I told you every day that I'd never even seen them. When that happened, you realized that maybe I wasn't as perfect as I claimed to be. But I gave you an excuse. I said that he forced me to. He seduced me and told me if I didn't do it, he was going to kill me. And you didn't believe me. You believed him.
I'm beautiful.